Are you an introvert? Well, I have, believe it or not, a very introvert side within myself. And one thing I really needed to learn is how I can use that for my own brand. Well, I'm no pro, but Goldie definitely is. So I can't wait to learn about her 5 C's about personal branding for introverts. Let's give it to us, please. The stage is yours, Goldie.
Hi everyone, I'm Goldie Chan, and today we are going to talk about personal branding for introverts. Specifically, how to grow your brand while still being yourself. Let's get into it. One of my quotes is by Serena Williams, and it goes, "I've grown most not from victories, but from setbacks." And I think that this is so relevant to growing your personal brand, especially as an introvert and a creative. So when we are thinking about growing our personal brand, maybe it's a little bit scarier to start from thinking every single thing I do has to be successful. It's so much easier to think, okay, if I am creating a successful personal brand, of course I'm going to have failures along the way. It's how we address them and learn from them that matters. A little bit about me to start. If you haven't met the Oprah of LinkedIn, you should. This is a nickname given to me by the press, the Oprah of LinkedIn. And the reason why I'm called the Oprah of LinkedIn is because I did 2 years of consecutive daily videos on LinkedIn. And I also helped grow a creative community from scratch, which was very, very fun. I also run my own agency, Warm Robots, and I write for Forbes on personal branding and storytelling in the digital age. And today I am so excited to bring to you here at AdWorld a very fun brand new keynote on personal branding for introverts. So let's get into it. So first we're going to go over why should you build a personal brand. The next thing we will review is the 4 kinds of introversion. Then we will cover several ways to grow your personal brand, both 5 ways to grow it as an introvert, and then also the basic 5 C's of personal branding. And then I will assign some homework and we will check in later. So let's get started. Why build a personal brand? So here are 5 ways to think about why you should build a personal brand. Number 1, you want to build credibility, as in you want to be a thought leader in your space. Number 2, you want to strengthen your network. You want to make sure that you know as many people as possible who are relevant to your personal brand goals. Number 3, you want to share the wealth of knowledge. You want to make sure that you can teach what you know, as that is one of the best ways to show what you know. Number 4, being a stronger advocate for internal causes. What does this mean? It means being able to stand up for things that you believe in internally at your company or as a leader of your team. And number 5, higher job stability. So I'm sure that this is something that we're all thinking about. So if not job stability, if you're not in a 9-to-5, then really thinking about how can we be more memorable to our current clients. So what are the 4 kinds of introverts? Well, let's start with going over this beautiful quadrant. We have social, thinking, anxious, and reserved, and I'm going to go over each of them right now. So a social introvert is probably what you commonly think of the most when you think about introversion. And this is someone who is more energized being alone than in groups. They may have many close one-on-one friendships or small group friendships, but they prefer that interaction over a large party. Now, number 2 is thinking introvert. This is a slightly new way of thinking about introversion, and that is folks who have their heads in the clouds. So people who are constantly thinking about things and maybe not focused on the task at hand, or maybe not as present as other people. Now, number 3 is anxious, and this is anxiety-based introversion. And this specifically means people who feel very, very anxious. They feel like being around and speaking to other people gives them massive anxiety. And then number 4, reserved. So this could also mean someone who is more restrained, is probably a better way of saying this. So a reserved introvert is someone who holds back from the crowd. They may not be anxious from the crowd, but they just hold themselves back a little bit from the rest of the group. It's helpful to think about all 4 of these different kinds of introversion when you're thinking about building your personal brand. In fact, let's get into that right now. What are some ways that you can begin to grow your personal brand as an introvert? So here are 5 ways I'd like you to think about when you are thinking about growing your personal brand. Number 1, play to your inner strengths, and we will go over all of these in a second. Number 2, discover your why. Number 3, find your quiet focus. Number 4, have a clear voice. And number 5, use your energy wisely. Okay, so let's start with number 1, play to your inner strengths. This is such a fun one. And that, what do you bring to the table? What are your strengths that you bring as someone who is trying to grow their personal brand? So say you are trying to grow your personal brand as an engineer. Perhaps one of the strengths that you have is simply that you are amazing at certain front-end coding. Maybe you know certain languages better than other people. Maybe you are great at teamwork. All of these are strengths that you can bring to the table. And one way to help us grow our personal brand is really thinking about how can we express these wonderful traits and feelings to our coworkers, to our colleagues, to everyone that we work and partner with. And finally, making sure that all of these different points of view help us grow our personal brand, because they help us feel better about ourselves. So it helps us gain a certain level of confidence. And we're going to go over confidence in a later module as well. But it's helpful to think about your strengths being the thing that makes you truly special, but also helps grow your personal brand. So number 2, discover your why. What is your purpose in your work? And for some people, what is your purpose in life? This will help you with understanding why you should have a personal brand at all. If you know what your why is, for some people, for example, their why may be helping others. If you know what your why is, it is so much easier to go out and make the effort to grow your personal brand, because the strength of your why will be so strong and clear that you will know why you are doing everything. So if we're, say, in-house, our why is going to help us be a better employee, be a better team member. And if we are an entrepreneur or running our own business, our why helps keep us strong on those days where it is very hard to be building our personal brand and be growing what it is that we do for a living and what we do because of our why. And of course, I want to leave you with this, which is really thinking about how can we inspire trust in other people. Number 3, find your quiet focus. So one of the key parts to building a personal brand for really anyone is knowing that key thing or those keywords that you're going to hone in on to build your personal brand. I'm going to give you an exercise right now with your personal brand, and that is to think about 3 keywords that best define your personal brand. For example, there will be hard skills that you have. So perhaps you are an engineer, a writer, a marketer, a creative. And then there are soft skills, which are really the adjectives for all of these. So maybe you are funny, amazing, interesting, thoughtful. You get to pick 3 total keywords, and you have to pick at least 1 from each column. And these 3 keywords will help you focus in on your brand. And as an introvert, it's very helpful to have quiet focus. Because regardless of what type of introvert you are, I think for introverts, it's so helpful to be able to process this all internally and then be able to express it externally. Okay, number 4, have a clear voice. So as opposed to advice that I give extroverts, typical extroverts, which is be loud and proud, especially if it makes you really happy to express yourself in that way. With introverts, it's a little bit different. Perhaps you don't feel comfortable, you're anxious about speaking loudly or writing a ton of content or creating content that is very bold and loud. Or maybe you are just more of a thoughtful, reserved person, so you don't necessarily want to be as loud and out there because it's not true to your brand. So when I say have a clear voice, I actually mean your actions as opposed to your shouting. So when our brands are proven through action, that's such a beautiful way to grow our personal brands. What do I mean by an action? For example, perhaps you are building a personal brand around being an artist that does amazing art for dog food products. In this case, having a beautiful portfolio of dog food art is going to be so much more helpful than yelling about having a portfolio about dog food art. Now, part of the sharing of that portfolio is where you are sharing your voice, right? You're sharing the action. So I want to put that in your head that if you feel uncomfortable with bragging or being very loud, a lot of this is showing your work. And I think that's a little bit easier than shouting about your work. And number 5, use your energy wisely. If you feel that you have minimal energy, as honestly most of us do, both introverts and extroverts these days, if you are feeling more drained than usual, make sure that you are using your energy wisely. Don't try to do everything all at once. Have really good boundaries with your team members, with your colleagues, with your clients. Make sure that you are expressing your limits and that you know your limits. So helpful, especially for your mental health. So make sure that you are using your energy very wisely. Now we are going to go over a bigger and broader view of a personal brand. I'm going to share with you my classic 5 C's of building a personal brand. So what must a personal brand show? It must show confidence, curiosity, credibility, catalyst, and commitment or culture. Let's get into each of these. So confidence, and I'm going to read the dictionary definition because I love dictionary definitions of words. Confidence is the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something, firm trust. And the reason why I love also thinking about confidence with introverts is that when there is this feeling of calm, when there is this feeling of confidence, you will notice that people trust you more and they will trust your brand as well. For example, if you are in a burning building and there is one person shouting excitedly but doesn't seem like they know what they're doing versus there's one person who is very calmly issuing directions and instructions, you're likely going to believe that person who is more calm. And this is the beauty of being an introvert, is if you can have that confidence and that calm, people will trust you more, and they will trust you more with decisions. Number 2, curiosity. Being really curious and being a good listener is such a key part to growing a personal brand. And once again, this is where introverts can really shine. If you can focus on listening to who your audience is and what they want, you can be a better person, but also have a better personal brand. So curiosity is such a helpful way to grow your brand, because the more you listen and the more you know about your target audience, your target demographic, the better you can build a stronger brand. Number 3, credibility, the quality of being trusted and believed in. So we talked about this a little bit earlier. Credibility is very, very helpful when you are trying to grow a personal brand. Because when you think about people who are trusted, it's usually because they have some sort of level of either notoriety, being just famous, or they're very credible. So this is someone who has grown their brand and that people know them for being an expert in their field. So credibility is a lot about being an expert or being a thought leader. All of these words all mean credibility. So the more credible you can appear, the better. And one way to appear credible is something that I've already talked about, and that is teaching what you know. Okay, number 4 is catalyst. Being a strong catalyst, being someone that is known for being calm in a sea of crazy, is so helpful to growing your brand. But also, being known as someone who can change things is also very, very helpful. Because if you are at the forefront of all the coolest things in your industry, it is a great way to grow your personal brand. Now, we might not remember always the first person who does something, but there's a much higher chance that we do. And that's when we think about people who are catalysts. So we remember usually the first person or first couple of people who started a trend, and then we remember the people who did it best. And both of these kinds of people are catalysts. So that's something to think about, that when you are growing your personal brand, it is great to be first, but it's also helpful to be the best. And number 5, commitment or culture. This has been so important over the last couple of years, really thinking about how to have a better, stronger version of you that has opinions, and that makes a stronger personal brand. So here's what I usually say about brand awareness. If no one is listening to you, then you don't have a brand. But I'm going to amend this for introverts and say, but if you're exhausted by building your brand, you won't have anything to say. So be careful with your energy and your resources. And finally, I'm going to go really quickly through some of these social media platforms. Obviously, there are so many more that you can use to build your personal brand. I'm just going to go over a few. LinkedIn, clearly the one that I have to mention, especially if you are looking to have your resume somewhere that's easily accessible. LinkedIn is another place to look at. Twitter is a great social platform to think about in terms of growing your personal brand. Instagram is also another place to visually grow your brand. So Twitter is a great place if you love to write content. Instagram is a great place if you are very visual. I would say if you are visual, Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, TikTok, these are all super helpful places to grow your brand. Facebook, I had to put it there, but not as much unless you're willing to spend money. And I want to add on another thing, another social platform onto this, which is Linktree. So what some people may not think about when they are listing out all their social platforms is it can be overwhelming, but Linktree is now a place that has so many users and is broadly recognized as a site that contains links. Pretty self-explanatory. So people are more likely to click on a Linktree link. They're of course more likely to click on, say, goldiechan.com/links, but they would probably also be willing to click on linktree.com/yourname. So being really thoughtful about even how you list your links is going to be a great way to grow your personal brand. Now I'm going to assign homework. And this homework is, of course, thinking about a better way to grow your personal brand as an introvert. So the exercise that I'd like you to do is to interview someone else who is in your industry vertical and or shares your job role. But mostly they have the kind of target demographic that you like to speak to. So the reason why you do this is it's so much easier to interview someone else to start and to create content around that than to necessarily focus the spotlight on yourself. So I'm going to give you your first piece of content if you've never created content around your personal brand before. So for example, if you design skateboards for a living, then maybe you want to interview someone who has a large following and also designs skateboards for a living, or designs commercial art for a living and partners with major brands. Thinking about who you can interview is also a great way to think about where you want your personal brand to grow. Now you're so on your way to growing an amazing personal brand. Feel free to follow me on all of these platforms, and I look forward to hearing about your growth as an introvert with your personal brand. Thank you, everyone.